Hi, Grandma here, and we are going to start reading the first book in the Kingdom of Wrenly series called The Lost Stone. Might be really nice to take a good look at the map of Wrenly. We'll come back to it in a few minutes when our heroes visit some of the places in Wrenly. And now to start the story. Prince Lucas raced up the spiral stone staircase in the castle to his bedroom. He knelt on the floor and pulled out a pile of clothes out from under his bed. There was a pair of worn trousers, a shabby shirt, a felt hat, scruffy leather boots, and a wool cloak. Lucas had gotten the clothes for a handful of coins from a boy in the village. Now the prince stood before a mirror and tried on the hat. This outfit will make me look like a normal 8-year-old boy, he thought. Nobody will ever know that I'm the Prince of Wrenly. And that was the problem. Lucas had grown bored of being a prince. Most kids would think, he must be crazy. Lucas had everything a boy or girl could wish for. A cozy goose feather bed, toys fit for a prince, the best cooks in the land to make his meals, and a view of the sea from the top of his turret. Lucas even had his very own horse, named Ivan. But there was one thing the prince did not have: friends. Lucas wanted a friend more than anything in the world. He'd had a friend once, a pretty green-eyed girl named Clara Gills. Clara's mother Anna made dresses for Lucas's mother, Queen Tasha. Anna always brought Clara when she came to the castle. Clara and Lucas had played hide and seek and twirled on the swings in the royal playroom, but not anymore. Lucas's father, King Caleb, had forbidden it. He said, "A proper prince does not play with village children." Lucas had cried until his nose got stuffy. So day after day, Lucas watched the village children walk to and from school. Sometimes they stopped at the bakery for breadsticks. In the afternoon, Lucas watched the children climb trees and play tag in the meadows. How he longed to laugh and play along with them. And now maybe I can have friends, he thought, because I, Prince Lucas, have a magnificent plan. But Lucas had to hurry. It was time to go. He stuffed the worn clothes into a sack and then slung the sack over his shoulder. Next he tied a thick rope to the windowsill, crawled onto the ledge, slid down the rope, and ran to the stables where he saddled Ivan. Then Lucas checked to see if anybody was around. "All clear," he said. He hopped onto Ivan, gave him a soft kick, and galloped away on his secret mission. Chapter 2, Lucas the Brave. Lucas dashed over a bridge and down into the village. Chickens squawked and scattered to get out of his way. The villagers bowed and tipped their hats as he rode by. Clang, clang! The school bell rang down the lane. Lucas slapped the reins and hurried toward the sound of the bell. As he drew near, he leaped over a stone wall and came to a rest. He hopped from the saddle and quickly changed his clothes. Lucas tucked his curly red hair inside the felt hat. Then he grabbed a handful of dirt and smudged his cheeks. He tied Ivan to a low tree branch and hung the sack with his princely clothes from the saddle. "Well, Ivan," he said, "here goes." Lucas climbed over the stone wall and stood in front of the schoolhouse. A swirl of smoke curled from the chimney. Lucas took a deep breath. "Today I am Lucas the Brave," he said to himself. Then he marched up to the schoolhouse and slowly pulled the doors open. Creak! The children sat in front of the teacher on benches. Everyone turned to stare at Lucas. A girl with a thin braid crowning her brown hair gasped and cupped her hand over her mouth. "Good evening, boy," the teacher said. "Are you here to join us?" "Yes," said Lucas. "I'm new in town." "Please have a seat," she said. I'm Mistress Carson. What's your name?" "My name is Flynn," fibbed the prince as he sat down on a bench at the back of the classroom. "Welcome," Mistress Carson said. "Class, please say good morning to Flynn." "Good morning, Flynn," said the class. "Now, all eyes on me," said the teacher. "We're going to work on subtraction." The children turned toward the teacher, all except the girl with the braided crown. It was Clara, Lucas's old friend from the palace. She looked at the prince and raised an eyebrow. The prince winked at her. She smiled and quickly looked away. No one seemed to notice. Mistress Carson wrote some sums on a large slate at the front of the classroom. "Now, who would like to solve a problem at the board?" she asked. The prince's hand shot up. He loved to add and subtract. His father had taught him math at home. Mistress Carson called Lucas up to the board. The children watched as the new boy walked to the front of the class. "I'm going to have lots of friends," Lucas thought. Then he began to work on one of the problems. The room was quiet, except for the chalk tapping on the board until, boom, 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 somebody began to pound on the doors of the school. Oh, what could it be? The children jumped in their seats. Lucas froze. His heart began to thump. The teacher hurried to the back of the room and opened the doors. 2 burly men burst in. Lucas dropped his chalk on the floor. "Oh, no," he thought, "the palace guards." He wanted to run, but the doors were blocked. "There he is!" shouted one of the guards as he pointed at Lucas. "That's the Prince of Wrenly!" Mistress Carson and the children gasped. The other guard ran toward the prince, grabbed him by the arm, and led him towards the doors. Clara waved at Lucas. As Lucas walked by, he hung his head. "Now I'll never have any friends," he thought. Poor Lucas. Kindness is king. King Caleb threw Lucas's peasant clothes into the fireplace. They burst into flames. "What were you thinking?" cried King Caleb. "You are a royal prince. You must behave like one. Peasants are not equal to royals." "But, father, I have no friends," said Lucas. "I'm bored out of my royal breeches." "You should spend more time with my knights," suggested the king. "You can train with them." "It's not the same," said Lucas. "I'm lonely and I need a friend my own age. I want somebody to talk to, and most of all, someone to go on adventures with me." The king sighed. He hated to see his son so unhappy, but he couldn't allow him to be friends with the peasants. Even they would think it was strange. He looked to Lucas's mother, Queen Tasha, for help. "Your father is right," said the queen as she brushed her long red hair. "But you are also right, Lucas. You do need a friend." She looked at her husband. "Anne Gills is like family to me," said Queen Tasha, "and her daughter Clara was like a sister to Lucas. Perhaps we should allow them to play together once in a while." King Caleb rubbed his blond beard thoughtfully. He was a mighty king, but he had a kind heart. "All right then, Lucas," he said. "I suppose you may be friends with Clara, but you're not to make friends with every peasant child in the Kingdom of Wrenly." Prince Lucas ran to his father's arms. "Thank you, father. I promise." Chapter 4. Hear ye, hear ye. Lucas couldn't wait for Clara and her mother to arrive at the palace, so he didn't. He snuck out and ran all the way to the bakery. Clara always went to the bakery after school. Her father, Owen Gills, worked there. Lucas peeked down the lane. The school children are coming, he thought. He didn't want them to see him. I guess he was kind of embarrassed about what had happened at school that morning. He pressed himself against the wall alongside the bakery. Then he listened to what they were saying. Why on earth would the prince want to go to school with us? Asked a boy named Albin. Maybe he's lonely, Clara said. I feel sorry for him, cooped up in the castle all day like that. The children laughed at Clara. How can you feel sorry for the prince? Asked a girl named Martha. The prince has everything, said another girl named Ashley. Not everything, said Clara. He doesn't have a single friend. He's not even allowed to play with me when I visit the palace with my mother. Well, I'd trade places with him any day, said Albin. I'd love to live like a prince. I know it sounds like a perfect life, said Clara, but a palace, fine clothes, and delicious food aren't everything. Bells jingled as the children slipped into the bakery. Moments later, each child carried a roll of butternut bread to the bench outside. Lucas's mouth watered. He wished he could join them. As he waited, he heard horses whinny. Then somebody began to shout. Hear ye, he cried. The Queen of Wrenly has lost her prized emerald stone. The king has offered a grand reward to anyone who finds it. The villagers began to hurry about to speed the news. Oh no, thought Lucas. I must get back to the palace. Lucas left his hiding place and ran all the way back home, being careful to stay in the shadows. Chapter 5, A Royal Adventure. Queen Tasha sat at her dressing table, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Lucas put his hand on his mother's shoulder. He knew that the emerald meant a lot to her. It had belonged to her great-grandmother. Don't cry, Mother, he said. I'm going to find your emerald. His mother smiled weakly. Then she picked up the gold chain from which her stone no longer dangled. It could be anywhere, she said sadly. I've been all over the kingdom these past 2 days. Where have you traveled to? Lucas asked. The queen thought for a moment. I went to Primlocks, Birth, and Hobbsgrove, she said. Lucas sighed. You're right. It could be anywhere, he said. But have no fear. I'm going to find it. I'll need help, though. What kind of help? His mother asked. Clara's help, said Lucas. The queen smiled and nodded. All right, she said. You have my permission. Thank you, Mother, said Lucas. I will find your emerald. Later that afternoon, Clara and her mother arrived at the palace. Lucas grabbed Clara by the hand, and they raced to the royal playroom. Then he told her his ideas. We'll search for the missing jewel together, Clara asked. Exactly, replied Lucas. But will your parents allow it? Said Clara with a frown. They already have after what happened today, said Lucas. What do you mean? Clara asked. After I got caught at the schoolhouse, my parents agreed to let us be friends again. You mean you didn't get into trouble? Questioned Clara. No, said Lucas. I think they felt sorry for me. Why? Because I have no friends, Lucas said. Clara sat on the swing and looked at Lucas. Is it hard being a prince? Asked Clara. No, it's D-U-L-L, dull, being a prince, said Lucas, and lonely. I can't even be friends with ordinary children. That royally stinks, said Clara. Lucas laughed. Well, at least we can be friends. That's great news, Clara said. So when do we start our search? Right now, said Lucas, and our first adventure will be epic. I love epic adventures, said Clara. Then let's make a plan, said Lucas. Lucas laid out a map of the great kingdom. Then they marked all the places Queen Tasha had been over the past 2 days. Clara knew the Kingdom of Wrenly well. She had delivered bread to all the lands with her father. I'll be your guide, Clara said. I can hardly wait, said Lucas. Oops.